Welcome back to part 2 of this beginner series. I won't belabor the intro and I'll just go ahead and get right into the first point. Right, number 15, don't let people make excuses for you. This is something that can really affect your early years of climbing. Let's say you fall on a move and someone, a friend of yours, sees that and they want to be supportive and they're like, oh, hey, don't worry about it. Like, that's just hard for you because you're short. Or if you can't pull off the ground on a boulder problem, they might be like, oh, well, that's just hard for you because you're tall. So sit starts are harder for tall people. Listen to them and say, okay, cool, thanks. Ignore it. Don't let people make excuses for you. They mean well, but it sets people back so far because suddenly there are these barriers that are placed on them. Some people don't know that things can be harder because they're shorter. Things can be harder because they're tall. But when they start hearing all these people say these excuses and putting them out for them, they just start, kind of wearing these and they're like, oh, yeah, no, that's big moves are hard because I'm short, or oh, that's just hard because it's bad route setting. That gym's hard because the grading's difficult. Here's the thing. Are some of these excuses valid? Yeah, absolutely. Short people will probably struggle on really enormous moves more than taller people. However, if you default to not taking an excuse and you just say, okay, this is a challenge, this is a puzzle, how do I solve this? What do I do to be able to get through this? That is a much more productive method to be able to continue to improve. And I mean, shoot, you might surprise people. Honestly, short people, in my opinion, are the most clever climbers out there. The ones who don't buy into excuses. They can come up with the most wild trickery that you've ever seen. And it's amazing. And it's because they look at these climbs, these cruxes, as puzzles. And they say, okay, how am I going to get through this? What do I need to do? And they do that rather than just making excuses. If people make excuses for you, just don't let them. If someone does it a lot, be like, hey, cool, I appreciate where you're coming from. I don't need that though. Number 16 is twisting for reach. I'm going to teach you all the very first lesson I ever learned in climbing. I want you to stick both arms out, close your right hand as if you were grabbing a hold. From here, roll your right shoulder back and left shoulder forward. Look at how much further your arm reaches. So I get about 1.5 feet of reach just by rolling my shoulders back and forth, like twisting through my upper back. That is the closest thing to free lunch that we get in all of rock climbing. If you can just immediately make moves 1.5 feet closer, incredible. That's great. Learning how to incorporate that into your climbing, just this little bit of rolling, is foundational. So many movements that you will do from here on out are based on being able to just kind of roll back and forth. So this is important. What I didn't say is keep your arms straight and just twist through everything. I think that is advice given to beginners with good meaning, but I do not believe in that advice. In fact, I am kind of against the advice of saying keep your arms straight and twist. I think it puts training wheels on people and there can be some benefits. I will talk on this at length, but it is something you should get rid of very quickly if you're teaching someone how to climb by telling them to straighten their arms. So I'm not saying straighten your arms and twist. I'm just saying get used to rolling back and forth. Like, you can grab and pull and row while twisting, and that's going to give you even more reach. And that's great. We want even more reach. Number 17 is level 4 beta memory. And this one's actually really rad. The faster you can get to this and have this be a thing you can do, incredible. And it is, can you remember what just happened while you were on the wall? Whenever you fall, how much can you remember about what just happened? Where were your feet at? What were you going for? That's a good place to start. Later on, as you advance, it's going to be, where was there tension in your body? Were you twisting? Which direction were you twisting? Like, how did every piece of your body feel? We're going to add a lot more pieces to this, but starting to practice remembering what happened. I fell. You come down. Okay. What went on? What was the first piece of the puzzle to break? Like, Did my foot pop? Is that why I fell? These kinds of things are huge. If we want to problem solve and say, okay, I tried this, that didn't work, what do I need to change? We need to be able to remember what we tried. Number 18 is knowing how to spot different foot placements. So this is recognizing heel hooks, toe hooks, when you're going to toe down, simple things like that, nothing really wild, but if you look at a hold, you should be able to say, okay, this affords me these different types of movements on this foothold. Maybe I'll smear on the top, I'll toe on the side, I can toe hook underneath, I'll heel hook on the side as well. Things like that. Number 19 is how to use momentum. Look, I would say in rock climbing, if I had to make a list of what are the most important factors that separate great rock climbers, being able to control momentum, how you generate it, the direction you generate it, and how much intensity you put into it, what level of power you put into this momentum, top 5, no question. I think it is one of the most important skills out there. For a beginner, level 1, can you just practice kind of creating a little bit of a bounce for moves? Imagine if you are standing underneath a basketball goal and you're going to try and slap the backboard. We're rock climbers. I'm not going to pretend like any of us are touching rim out here. So what do you do first? You spring down. So you compress your legs and then you jump up from there. It's the same thing if we're trying to be powerful while climbing, or if we're just trying to get more force through our legs while climbing. First thing you should do is kind of spring down, compress down into your legs, create a little swing, and go up for the next hold. It will save you so much energy. It's going to feel weird at first. It might feel dramatic and over the top. Like you might feel like it's something you only need for huge moves. And I will say practicing it on huge moves is much easier. Being able to use momentum on tiny moves is the mark of an expert. So don't feel bad if small moves feel weird and clunky using momentum. But yeah, practice it. Watch people, watch how they do it. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is. Number 20 is just knowing how far you can statically reach. Statically meaning still. So opposite of momentum. Generally speaking, how wide are your arms? And from your fingertips down to your toes, how far can you reach? Knowing this just from a general perspective of standing and looking is fine, but being able to translate it to the wall is really important. I would say get on a vertical wall and try and do moves at your maximum width. See how far you can reach side to side. Grab a hold, try and stand up all the way up on your tiptoes and see how far can you reach vertically. If you can kind of build a mental measuring stick so that whenever you're climbing, you can look around and say, oh, I know I can reach that, or that's just out of my range for the feet I'm on, that's going to be really helpful. Point number 21 is understanding the terminology. This is really helpful in a sport that's so skill-based, where we don't really have a set structure for learning. It's not like there's a book that says, start here, finish here. Congratulations, you're now great at rock climbing. We don't have that. So much of our lessons are gleaned from other people. So you have to be able to listen to someone else talk and be able to transcribe what they say into actionable advice. If you hear someone say something, fortunately we have phones now, like Google it if you need to. But if someone's like telling you something, they're like, oh yeah, try this. You can, drop knee up to this. If you don't know what a drop knee is, ask them. Be like, hey, so I've heard that before, but like, what is it? And honestly, you'd be surprised. A lot of people, there's a lot of terminology that people use that they're like, I think it means this. There's a lot of vagueness. But yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions about what things mean, and also try and look things up when you need to. Number 22 might be the most important skill that the fewest amount of people talk about, and that is being comfortable falling. Everything I've talked about up to this point has pretty much been, how do you get more comfortable on the wall? When you're on the ground, how do you plan better? When you're on the wall, how do you feel more comfortable? All these things. But being comfortable falling off of the wall is such a critical skill that not enough people talk about. If you aren't comfortable falling, you're not going to be able to remember what you tried on your last go as easily because you're going to be just stressing about the fall. You're not going to be able to try as hard. All these issues are going to come up. This is such a valuable place to spend time. It's so hard to learn new things when you're scared or intimidated, and a lot of people are. I think this is something that even very advanced climbers don't talk about nearly enough, but there's a lot of people that get, kind of wigged out bouldering and lead climbing, even if they have a ton of experience. And if they spent a little more time practicing falling, getting used to it, just getting comfortable with that, not only are they going to be able to apply themselves better to the wall, they're going to be able to try harder, be more focused, they're going to be able to have more of their mental energy be put into the climbing itself, but it just makes it more fun. Being comfortable falling makes it to where there's not this big stress and dread around, oh, I'm going to get to that move, but there's like this weird sideways swing and I'm afraid of that fall. Like, that's not fun. No one likes that. Even people who climb really tall boulders don't like being scared. Like, that's not an enjoyable thing. So practicing falling and even, practicing some tumbling, things like that, can be really useful just to make yourself a little more comfortable and be able to enjoy climbing more. So number 23 is basically a fundamental of route reading, and it is looking for chalk and shoe rubber. The most simple way of thinking of it is hands go on white, feet go on black. Climbing shoes have black shoe rubber. Anytime you step on a foothold, it marks it, especially when people step on it a lot. So what that means is the footholds that have been used the most are going to have the heaviest coating of shoe rubber on them. So they're going to be the darkest shade of black. Same thing with your hands. Because people chalk up and then grab holds, the more times people touch holds, the brighter white those holds are going to get. So it's almost like a heat graph in a way, to where the darker a foothold is, the more it's being used, which probably means it's the correct foot, or it's like the most common beta. Same thing with hands. The brighter it's glowing white, that's the best part of the hold, or those are the holds that are used the most. All right, y'all, 24 is kind of a public service announcement, but I swear this actually does help for performance as well. And it's clean your shoes. And if for some reason you're a higher level climber watching this, don't think you're beyond this, because you're not. I see you. I see y'all out bouldering all the time. People will just walk around in mud and dirt and then immediately get on a problem, and you can just hear it grinding sand into the footholds. Their feet pop and they're just like, oh wow, man, I don't know what happened. It's like, well, it wasn't the $200 shoes you're wearing. You just didn't wipe them off. Literally, if you're wearing pants, you can just like wipe the bottom of your shoes on the inside of your calves, like on the pants. Otherwise, if you're on crash pads, wipe your feet off. Make sure they look clean underneath. Like, sometimes a little bit of chalk's fine, but realistically, the cleaner you get your shoes, the better they're going to stick to the rock, the less it's going to polish rock over time. And that's important. Like, don't buy nice shoes and then climb on rock with them dirty. Like, at that point, what are we doing? Number 25 is, broadly speaking, plan for success. More specifically, look at the tops of boulders. So if you're inside, look at the top few holds. Make sure that you know what's going on up there. If you can't really see inside of them, walk really far to the left, walk really far to the right, like get back really far. Try and make sure you can see everything you need to be able to see, so that when you get up there from the ground, you've got kind of a general idea of what's going on. If you're climbing outside, look at the top outs. Walk to the top of the boulder if you have to. Go up. Also, sometimes there might be leaves and pine needles and dirt in top out holds. Take a brush with you or just scrape them out. Make sure they're not dirty. But have a plan so that whenever you go to top out a boulder problem and you're outside and you're in this weird little like beached whale hunched over position, you're not trying to find holds then. You should already, hopefully, have a little bit of a plan. That'll save you a lot of stress in the future. All right, so our final point is number 26, and that is knowing most fundamental techniques just from a basic standpoint. And what this means is, if someone's like, oh, you heel hook there, Not only should you like visually know what a heel hook looks like, but you should be able to, put your heel in, pull with your leg, kind of have a general feel for how that works. If someone says drop knee, you should know how to drop knee. You don't need to be experts at these things like just yet. That's way down the road. But you should have a general feeling for how to do most fundamental skills. And this is kind of like the exit exam for beginner climbers. If you know most different techniques and you can like kind of do them, like you're not good at knee bars, but you at least like know what they are, and like you could kind of plug one if it's very like obvious. Cool, great. That's all we're really looking for is, can you do all the fundamental things? Okay. With this list, don't feel like it's hard and fast rules that you have to follow. Like, you don't need all of these check marks, or else you're not, an intermediate climber. Like, it's okay. Honestly, there's going to be some advanced climbers who are going to look back and be like, yikes, probably should have done some of those. And that's cool. You can always catch up later. And same thing, the next video is going to be for intermediates. But if you're a beginner climber, go ahead and check that out. See, are there things that maybe you're already doing, you're doing a good job of? Or are there things that you kind of want to be striving for? Do you feel like you got most of this checklist done? You're feeling pretty good about it. Like, look ahead, see what's up next. So yeah, thanks for watching, y'all. And make sure, let me know which one of these on the list that you found maybe most important to see a follow-up video on. Were there things where you're like, ooh, I know about this, but like, I would love to have some better instruction? Or are there things where you're like, I've never heard of that, and tell me more? Yeah, or are there things that you think are useless? Tell me that too. Sure. Thanks for watching. I'll see y'all next time.